special episode of Master Mixology, where today we're taking science out of the museum and into the Queen City.
Here we're at Noda Brewing and talking to Chad, the head brewer, and we're here to learn about the science of brewing. Looking around here as a scientist, I'm excited by a lot of the different equipment, machinery. I saw you even have a lab.
We do.
So can you talk a little bit about what different sort of scientific processes and procedures you kind of do as a brewer?
Absolutely. So basically every single bit of the process that we do on this big system and in all the tanks where they actually ferment, all is rooted in science. Everything from getting the actual products to us, there's a fair amount of science in just the processing to get to us, from malting grains to cultivating the hops to selecting the specific yeast strands. But when we get over here, we have to really look at what sort of goal mashing temperatures we look at for correct enzymatic processing, because a lot of people think that you can just throw hot water on grain, you're going to get wort out of it. There's actually a pretty wide scope of different temperatures that cause different enzymatic activity to happen. So depending on what we want to have occur in that mash will depend on what we have our temperature set in, and we have different tools to test to make sure that we are getting the right extraction of fluid of sugar density out of it. We also are looking at pH, and then we're also looking at things such as viscosity in our flows. We look at alpha acid content and overall oil content in hops. We also monitor pH and gravity development. Gravity basically being the density of sugar in beer. So whenever you hear if a beer is high gravity, that means that its original density of sugar was very high, because when you think about what makes a beer is basically just fermented sugar. So when you start with a high density of sugar content and it eats a lot of that sugar, it makes a lot of alcohol. So if you have a high gravity beer, it's probably going to give a high amount of alcohol to it. So every beer that we brew, we check it every day to graph and chart and basically make sure it stays to our standard of its normal attenuation or gravity consumption, as well as following the same general path of pH development. And then we also do flavor stability as well. And then we also count cells for yeast health to make sure our yeast are healthy and happy, because they're very much like little finicky kids. And if they are not happy, the beer goes south pretty quickly, and we don't want to dump a beer if we don't have to. So every step of the process, from when we mash in the grain to when we send the beer into the packaging, we measure all sorts of different parameters, all the way down to oxygen saturation, because oxygen can actually deplete the quality of the beer over time as it sits on the shelf. So there's never a point where we're not checking quality control and quality assurance. And that's probably the biggest challenge as a production brewery, is to not just make good beer, but to make it consistently and keep it evolving in a progressive way.
So how is beer different from, say, liquor or wine?
So basically you have your distilled liquors and you have your non-distilled alcohols. And so basically the general rule of thumb is every naturally occurring alcoholic beverage like wine or beer or cider or mead is essentially yeast fermenting some sort of sugar in a fluid medium. So in wine you are fermenting grape juice, in mead you're fermenting honey, and then in cider you're fermenting apple juice. With beer you're fermenting the starch chains from mostly barley, but basically grain in a nutshell. Hops are actually not essential for making beer an iconic item or something different than those other ones, but it's been so iconically used over the generations that it's a standard ingredient, even though it doesn't contribute to the actual alcohol production directly. When you look at distilled liquor, you kind of look at it as distilled liquor like whiskey or rum or vodka. They were all essentially some pseudo wine / beer to begin with, and then they're distilled out through a heat or steaming. When you look at like the percentage of, say, a beer, if you had a very high corn density beer and it was like 8% of its alcohol, 92% of its water. So when you heat it up really heavy and then it steams out, and the water separates from the rest of it and steams out and escapes, and they collect the distillate, that distillate is now hyper concentrated alcohol. So then suddenly you get 50 to 40, whatever percentage of high octane, that therefore after aging it in a barrel it becomes whiskey.
So this has been really awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure there's a bunch of people at home right now who are passionate about beer or who are home brewers themselves. What kind of advice do you have for them?
I say the best thing you can do is ask other people around you that are home brewers. In Charlotte specifically, there's great home brewing communities that have people that have been doing tons of different experimentations for longer than we've even been around as a brewery, and I was part of several of the groups and whatnot. I've learned a ton from people that have just been out there killing it with amazing beers, and they may not ever want to be a professional brewer, but they can make amazing beer and win competition after competition on a homebrew level. So I think talking to peers that make the types of beers that you would like to emulate, most people are very open on how they make their beer. I mean, I'm fairly transparent about what we do over here. So I want people to be able to know what they're about to ingest in their body if they're buying it from us. And a lot of homebrewers take so much pride in what they make in the process with it. Most of them are very happy to share it. There's also tons of great forums online. Simply Googling a question will get you a lot of people's opinions on everything. So it can be a little daunting at first, but there's a lot of great literature out there, like The Love of Homebrewing. Charlie Papazian's books in general are really good places to start. And even just going on YouTube tutorials just to get the general basics down, because when you're reading step by step, sometimes it's hard to visualize what exactly everyone's talking about. So looking at a video of someone actually doing it can be a good way to get your bearings on each recipe. Thank you all so much for coming and visiting me here and hearing me talk about my favorite thing in the world, craft beer. If you want to sip for science, come join us here at Noda Brewing Company any day of the week.
And we'll see you next time on Master Mixology.